Hello there, sword friends. Today I thought I would tell you about this sword right here because it's probably going to be one of my last chances to do so. I'm going to put this one up for sale because it sits in the corner and it's hard to find big beefy blades, and so I'm sure it will make somebody a happy sword guy at some point. But that guy is, alas, not going to be me. Unfortunately, I have no idea what it is, so I'm going to elicit some help here. If you happen to have any idea who made it, I would appreciate you let me know in the commentary down below. It is an interesting sword, so I'll go over some of the bits and bobs and fits and features. I'll also tell you a little bit about where I got it or when I got it, or, well, none of that actually. I will tell you what I got it with, which I think is actually probably the most helpful. So this came to me with a bunch of different Hanwei swords. This was the only sword that wasn't from Hanwei or from the Paul Chen stuff. All the other ones that I got were some of the earliest Hanwei pieces that were out there. A very early version of a Shinto, and also what I believe is like a custom variety of a Hanwei something, because it has, well, it has signs. I'm less skeptical about that one. This one though has a bunch of pieces that I can't really identify and don't look particularly special, but also look uncommon. So I will talk about them. Anyway, that's the stuff that I got it with. I suspect it's 20 or 30 years old. That would be my guess. But anyway, yeah, I'm gonna put it up for sale. It's an interesting sword. I don't know what it is though, and I think I'd like to before I do. So anyway, if you have questions, throw them in the commentary down below. We'll try to answer, but if you happen to know what it is or have any guesses, throw it in the commentary down below as well. Anyway, starting up at the top here, we have a floral themed Fuchikashira, and these are not particularly special floral themed Fuchikashira. They're not the same level of casting quality that I typically see on Hanwei pieces, but nor are they things that I've seen like 1,000 times before. This looks like before the parts bin swords of Longchuan that we understand today. This looks like an earlier fitting set that perhaps was from the parts bin. It's clearly cast. It's reasonably detailed, but at the same time has some muddiness to it, you might say. The lines kind of wander. It looks like it's maybe cast from an original piece. That's speculation on my part, but that's what I would guess. It is reasonably well fit. So on one hand, it's a little kind of cockeyed this way, but this way it's at least kind of straight. It also hasn't come off, and the Ito, after many years, is still reasonably tight. Now on the Kashira, I can pull it and I can wiggle it a little bit, but the remainder of the Ito actually doesn't move around very much. The diamonds are tied in such a way that for such an early sword is actually reasonably pleasant. It doesn't give me the impression that it was redone. This looks like possibly or likely original work, but I guess I don't know that for a fact. It's just the material doesn't look, usually when people retie them, they're done with higher grade stuff or tied a little differently. This just looks like reasonably good work for the time and place. The Samegawa panels underneath here are small nodules. They're not particularly grandiose or special. I have taken the handle off as well, and the Nakago is basically just bare. There's what looks like the vestige of a number 20 or a 02 or something like that on the Nakago, but there's no mei, there's no signature, and the shaping is relatively consistent with what I've seen out of Longchuan for a number of years, except for it looks a little less. Usually they're kind of like sanded down and futzed around with a little bit more. This, well, it doesn't have any kind of mei or anything special about the tang. It doesn't have a lot of grinding haphazard marks. It's a little cleaner than you might expect. As I move up, I can see the Manuki on here. Again, kind of parts bin special stuff. The Fuchi is, well, the material is kind of constricting a little bit. Maybe that's why it feels tight, so I can make out some of the wood underneath it no longer fits super well, but the shaping of the handle is actually relatively decent. I can't say that I mind it. It's on the long side, and I prefer something on the shorter side, but it's interesting for a big long blade. The Suba has a raised rim, which is one uncommon piece for so long ago. It's also a shape that I don't recognize, and it also looks like it was cast with something like, it has the cheap seppa cast into the fitting, which is very strange. They have copper seppa that are added here, but there are like seppa that are cast into the Suba itself, which is also very strange. So the casting quality looks pretty decent. The little Nanako emulation, the little dimple bits that are on here are cast in reasonably well, but at the same time, yeah, like it's like the cast-in seppa are a sign of like, that's not great, but the casting quality, being able to make out the Nanako, making out the floral piece, the raised rim area, all points to a better casting quality. Maybe they just had an odd piece or something that was chewed up around the Nakago Ana, so they put seppa in there to cast. I'm not sure, but Either way, it's not something that I have really seen before. I've seen antiques shaped like it, but I haven't seen this tsuba in the parts bin, so to speak. The saya has some pings and dings. It's got some splitting, but it's also not special. There's no horn parts that I can distinguish on here, and it has an ishime style finish, like that stone textured finish on the surface of the blade. Little pings, dings, scuff, things like that. And again, just no horn parts of any kind, so it's a not particularly special saya, but it doesn't rattle a lot, and it still is tensioned reasonably well. It doesn't fall out super easily, but with a little bit of a tug or a push, it does come out. But a little shake upside down, it doesn't fall out right away. So it's still tensioned reasonably well, but could use some love. The blade is where things are perhaps more interesting. So the habaki, kind of standard brass habaki, other than it's a little bigger than one might expect, but kind of fit about the same way. The blade, however, appears to be laminated, which is not something that I see in swords from this period. It has kind of a weird Damascus-y pattern, or a more bold kind of pattern than I'm used to seeing. It doesn't look like tamahagane or any kind of special steel, but it also doesn't look like what I normally see. And there's a very prominent line in here that gives me the impression it's a laminated blade. I don't know that for sure, but I kind of suspect that's what I'm looking at. It also has like a hamon that's been differentially hardened in here. I can make it out, but it's done with a pattern that I see on many very inexpensive swords. This kind of just sawtooth hamon that's laid in there and then etched a little bit, but then taken off. It's a little bit strange, but if you catch it in the right light, you can make out some of those details. Like, it has a higher end steel, but it also uses the same kind of gimmicky pattern that was used on a number of different swords of the day. It does appear to be differentially hardened, but at the same time, that hardening is, well, it's obscured quite a bit. And now what I'm seeing might not be differentially hardened. It could be the ghost of an etched or some sort of hamon that's been washed off. I don't think that's the case, though. It kind of gives the same resemblance to differential hardening that I've seen in other swords. The pattern is bold and different, and I suppose that's one thing that makes it really hard to identify. The lamination, or what I suspect to be lamination, also makes it kind of hard to identify. It's also wider than usual, so most blades of the time didn't have the same level of polish or finish that this does, but we're also quite a bit thinner, at least maybe like 1/8 of an inch thinner. This is, the measurements are in the description down below, but this is a wider, beefier blade, and it stays beefier all the way out to the tip, and that also is just an uncommon shape, kind of a custom option, if you will, which is not something that you saw a whole lot, from the period that a number of these blades that came with the sword had. Now, this may be not from that period and could be just something from a dumpster. I don't know. The polishing is a little weird. The yokote is like put on in a weird place, but it does almost have like a slightly swollen kasaki, so it flares just a little bit, not a lot. Again, that's something that you don't see on many swords. You see sometimes on higher end swords. Hanwei was known for doing that. This has that kind of shape done to it, and it's just not something you see done on usually inexpensive, kind of crappy swords. This is a beef cake of a sword. It feels hefty and stout in the hand. It's teetering on clumsy for me. So if I move it around, it's not something that I can't move around, but at the same time, it feels like it's going to do a lot in the cut. If you're looking to do tamashigiri or something like that, I have no idea how well it cuts. I haven't cut with it, but it feels like it will, with a proper edge, do the job for you. At the same time, it's not something I'd want to do kata with, because it's hard to keep that tip controlled. It takes a lot of effort, at least for me to do it. Anyway, it's a bit of an odd one, and I really don't know what it is, and I guess I'd like to. I suspect, I don't know, maybe something from Musashi or some other brand earlier in the days. I'm not sure, but it's an odd one, and the pattern on it was just interesting and fun to look at. So I thought I would share it with you, because I anticipate it leaving my collection at some point in the not too distant future, and I'm not so bad with a camera. I thought you might like it too. Anyway, like I said, if you have ideas on who might have made it, throw them in the commentary down below. That's all I've got. Cheers. Thanks for watching.